I see you got your dashiki.
Yes.
Let me tell y'all an inside joke. So I thought I was doing something real African, probably about maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I went over to the West Side, got me one of those dashikis for $19.99, right? And during my birthday celebration, Derrick Boazman purchased me a real dashiki. And he said, brother, I got to do this for you because I don't know what you've been wearing, but you got on a shiki. Ain't nothing dashiki about what you got.
All right.
And I've been rocking my dashiki ever since, man. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
Brother, you've been working all day?
Man, they've worked me like a government mule today.
Yes, sir.
But it's all good. I'm home with our people.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. So it's my honor to just have a discussion with you, maybe find out some things about you we didn't know. Is that possible, DB?
It's very possible now.
Okay.
I mean, you know, I've lived in the public for a long time, so
Yeah.
most people know a whole lot. I try to reserve some for myself and for those who are closest to me, but I'm out here open book, so let's rock with it.
You often say you didn't come here, you from here.
Mm-hmm.
You say that a lot. Explain your history and your affiliation with your hometown, Atlanta, and Mama them.
Well, Atlanta, first of all, let me just do this quick survey. Anybody here from Atlanta, born and raised, raise your hands high. In fact, stand up so these other folk can look at y'all and see what real people look like. Now, keep standing now. Now, if you were born at Greater Hospital, keep standing, but if not, then have a seat. Okay. All right, Hugh Spalding is greatest. So I want y'all to look at, these are authentically Atlantans here, okay? The rest of these other people born in these little hospitals and everything. But let me say that, have a seat, please. Atlanta is a very special place. It is, I say it's my home because I was truly born and raised here. My mom and father my dad originally from Opelika, Alabama, my mother from LaGrange. They met, and you understand my family history. Most of my mother's siblings went up north because it was too hot in the South, right? My mother is 77, so in her coming of age, if you wanted to get out of the oppression of what the South meant, you went to Chicago. So most of my mother's family is in Chicago. My father's family moved here. My grandmother that I talked about, Grandmama Zora, when she moved from LaGrange, she moved to Carver Homes in South Atlanta. And my father, who had this very special relationship with his mother, moved about a mile from her. And so we were all clustered together. My uncle Ed lived up the street in the house. And of course, when I came of age, I bought the house next door to my mama. So I've never lived in another community. All of my 52 years have been spent in what we call the village, or Betmar Villa. Mm-hmm. And so, as I said, it nurtured me, you know, whether it was in civic affairs, working with little old ladies. Women are some of the absolute best organizers, best planners. And so, if you can give it up, if I learned anything about community organization, that was a group of old ladies in the Joyland community. Miss Julia Pearl Smith, who didn't have a lot of formal education, but controlled the millions of dollars. She was the finance director for the UAW union. And so I learned a lot from, Atlanta, when I said I'm from here, Atlanta is a very, very special place. That's not to say anybody who's a transplant. We love everybody. But the folks who kind of been through the Atlanta experience know what I'm talking about.
What were some of those early experiences that shaped your affection and love for the community, specifically for Black people?
13. I was 13 years old. And the lady who lived behind me, behind our house, was Miss Johnson. She was about 80 years old. Miss Johnson was one of those 80-year-olds who got up and went downtown, caught the 6 o'clock bus to make it down to, before the train went to Far Road, she was a maid in Buckhead. And maids then were not maids as we traditionally understood. They really did raise white folks' children. And so she was that. And it meant so much to her. She had on the black dress and the white gown.
There was pride there.
You know, and so she did that. But it came a time, at that particular time, EOA, if you've been around Atlanta, Economic Opportunity in Atlanta, was a poverty program. Miss Johnson got to the point where she couldn't get her commodity foods. She worked every day, but she qualified for free food. And so the John Burdine Center, the neighborhood center that's closest to us, was the place that the food got dropped off. You take your little card, you take it up there and get a stamp. You get your powdered milk. You get the best cheese in America, that big old block, about 10-pound cheese. How many of y'all done had that government cheese? I wish that's the one thing I really wish the government got back in the business of. So long story short, I ended up saying, well, Thee was saying how she couldn't get her food, and she needed it, right? She was raising a grandson that was my age. So I put a basket on the front, a milk cart on the front of my Huffy bike, tied it on with a bungee cord, rode up to the EOA office at 13 and said, I'm here to get Miss Johnson's food. Amen. And I took her card, and Miss Strong, was the lady who's up there. Miss Strong still working Fulton County government. She told me, I don't know why you're here. I'm really not supposed to give you somebody else's food. But at 13, she assumed I was taking it back to Miss Johnson. So I took Miss Johnson her food back, and I saw how it made her feel. She actually broke down crying, and I wasn't ready for that. And so that started really my service in EOA, because then I found out 3 or 4 others were having the same experience. By 14, I had convinced my father, who would never let anybody touch his car, to let me drive up the street, because it was on about 3 blocks. There weren't no houses over there then. It was barren. Let me drive and pick up about 7 or 8 of these seniors' food. And that started my community service at about 13, 14 years old.
You actually saw how you could have an impact.
I saw how it made other people feel.
Yeah.
And then I knew how it made me feel. That something as simple as going and get somebody's cheese and milk and eggs will make them so ingratiated. So they were so kind about it. And all I'm thinking is, the milk don't even taste that good, right? But if this makes them happy, it is equally making me happy to make them happy. And so I understood what service really was all about. And that, once I did that, there was no turning back.
So this is a discussion. We may skip around a little bit, just depending on where we go. But I want to fast forward to your college years.
Yeah.
Because, brother, I've heard the stories of you raising you know what.
All right. Oh, good. I was thinking you were talking about the frat party.
No, not those two. I heard those two. We're not going. This is still a Christian university, brother.
Here's the thing. It is. I meet Arthur Langford Jr. How many of y'all knew Arthur Langford? Knew the man, not the highway, but knew him. Okay. I had the good fortune to meet this brother at a leadership retreat, similar to the Let Us Make Man conferences that we hold, the leadership, similar to a leadership forum like this. I'm 17 years old. I meet Arthur. I find out that he is born in the community just adjacent to me. I'm born in the village, what we call Betmarla Villa. He and his family were born in Joyland. Okay. And right off of Pryor Road. And so I go to this leadership conference. I meet him. He's a preacher. Arthur was a very dapper dresser. He always drove a nice car. At 17, we won't know what he's driving. He got a 633 BMW. Beautiful wife, this wonderful guy. And I was just fascinated by him. His tone, the way he speaks. Arthur has this big mustache, just a handsome guy. But he was very rooted, and he made sure that everybody understood that he liked lima beans and tomatoes and onions, and he was just an everyday dude. And when I began to understand his history, he attended Morris Brown. He was the youngest person ever elected to the Atlanta City Council at age 23. He was a preacher, He went on to be a state senator, died very prematurely of kidney disease. But he was the escape for me. He was a person I could look to. I didn't know what, at 17, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm very smart. I transferred from Price, my local school, to North Fulton and Buckhead in the International Baccalaureate program. So I went from all black to having to be white, and I enjoyed my white years with Chad and Rusty and Brittany and Ashley, and I enjoyed my years. But I woke up and knew that our people were very unique. So I tried to follow this guy. I really wanted to pattern my life after. So I went to Morris Brown. I was really headed to Morehouse and got off at the wrong stop and ended up being recruited to go to Morris Brown by the recruiter who happened to be walking across the campus.
Explain that, unpack that.
So I'm from Atlanta, but my family, we were middle class. We were okay. So I never really caught the train other than to go to North Fulton, catching the bus. So I didn't know all of the train stops. So I'm trying to go to Morehouse. Well, let me back up before that. The greatest influence in my life was my father, Jesse James Boazman. And his nickname was what? Snake. So this was a black man who was dark-skinned, very much a disciplinarian, did not suffer food gladly, didn't take no wooden nickels. He meant every word of everything he said. He was about 5'8". All of my brothers and I were over 6 feet. Played ball, was always big and brawny. But when that man spoke, we listened. He said 9 o'clock be at home. I wouldn't have been late like I was getting here. I was there 8:45 because the penalty was too high. My father said to me, when you graduate high school, I'm going to stop working so hard. I'm the youngest of 6. I have 2 sisters and 3 brothers. And he said the other philosophy he had, when you graduate from high school, you've got to decide before you graduate what you're going to do, because the day you graduate, you got to leave away from here.
Wow.
And when I graduated, I was the only child left at the house. Everybody else had to leave away from there. So all of my brothers, my oldest brother Mike, August came back around. He had to do, what are you doing? It's time for you to go. He had to go join the Army. The next brother joined the Army. My next brother graduated early. My 2 sisters went to college, and it was my turn. And my grandmother passed away in August of 2014. My father died about 4 months later. It was shocking to me. I had a full ride to play football at Georgia Tech. I didn't want to do anything after that.
Yeah.
My mother depended on that man so much. She didn't even know how to drive. We had to teach her how to drive. We had to really teach her how to be independent. And I felt a sense of obligation to not go to school. So I stayed out for 2 years. And by the time I meet Arthur, I'm ready to go to school. Morris Brown was the option for me. I was walking across the campus. Back to that story. And I got off. I was supposed to get off at West End and walk up. I end up getting off at Vine City and trying to figure out how to go across Morris Brown campus, down Beckwith, and to get to Morehouse. As I'm walking, Tyrone Fletcher, who was a colonel, but he was also the recruiter, stopped me and said, "Where are you headed?" I said, "I'm trying to get to Morehouse. Can you tell me how to get there?" He said, "Where are you going there for?" I said, "I'm going to go to register for school." He says to me, "You want to go to school?" I said, "No, I don't want to go. I'm going." He said, "What is your grade point average?" I said, "I'm in the International Baccalaureate program. I have about 3.8 grade point average. I have first semester of college completed." And he says, "I'll give you a full ride scholarship today."
Wow.
I said,
That'll do it.
He said, "I'll give you a full ride today." And he walked me into the admissions office. I registered for Morris Brown on that very same day. And that's how I ended up at Morris Brown. But also in the back of my mind, I wanted to go to Morris Brown anyway because my mentor went to Morris Brown. So it all kind of went full circle.
You found a voice at Morris Brown. You became a leader pretty quickly.
I had leadership qualities.
Yeah.
And remember now, I when I got to Morris Brown, I'm 2 years non-traditional. So I'm 18, 19, roughly, right on the cusp of 20. And I've always been very brash and outspoken. That has not changed. Always had a sense of purpose. And when I got to Morris Brown, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the whole college experience. So I was really what was a non-traditional student because I didn't live on campus at first. But I got immersed in the politics of the campus. And by my sophomore year, I ran for student government president, which was unheard of, and won. And student government was a pretty big deal back then because we had a budget, an office, and they depended on you to kind of do a lot of stuff. But by the time I got there, I was a little bit more radical. It was a different time. We're talking 1986, 87, 88. I am called to speak, By this time, you also know the echo. How many of y'all from Atlanta now? Been around here for a while? So we always knew the rap of the Atlanta University Center, which college was considered the college of the bourgeoisie, men, Morehouse. Spelman had his reputation. Morris Brown was the college where, this where the field Negroes went, right? So I was a proud field Negro. But I was a well-trained field Negro. So there was always this competition to speak. And so when we gave a speech, we would do all this stuff together, AU Center Unity. But when it came time for Morris Brown representative to get on that stage, I said, I'm going to kill it every time. And I would give the most awesome speech and kill it. And so I wanted Morris Brown to be seen as a school of great report and reputation. And so whenever there was a competition with any other AU Center schools, it was just, I'm going to kill it for the field Negroes out here. So,
You had some battles with Morris Brown as an institution while you went there. Explain some of those battles.
Yes, the battles are very kind. Here's the thing. Again, remember the time now because time always dictates the agenda. And I'm at the Atlanta University Center at the height of black consciousness. We're all wearing black medallions, the leather medallions. I am there with, it's a black thing you wouldn't understand. Public Enemy is out, Do the Right Thing. Spike Lee is shooting movies over there. It is the Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. I meet this man. Better yet, he meets me. I am speaking at Clark on a panel with professors, and this guy said he's a former Black Panther, and he was this, and it was at Clark. And so again, I'm coming from Morris Brown. Got to represent for who? The field Negroes. And so this guy says something. I go up one side of him and come down the other. The guy gets so angry, he exits the stage. All I hear in the background is, woo, this whooping voice. And it is Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. And if you ever met Dr. Khalid, as we call him, at this time he is the national spokesman for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He is here in the southern region. Sister Zahira, who's on the front line. I had mothers from the nation, Sister Lucille, Sister Hadia. So they're just pushing. There's this tension that is there. And so I end up as student government president. We take over the administration building. Because
now, when you say take over, brother,
well,
you almost want to just brush over that. We take, did y'all break in? Did y'all lock the doors?
Let me tell you, here's the thing. The school, Morris Brown had a policy where they allowed students to sign a promissory note that said, I will pay to come, you let me come back next semester, I'll pay. And, it was April. It was late March, April. The president at that time was Calvin Smith. He made a decision that if you had a balance owed to the school, you had to pay the balance up. And he sent out a letter, had to pay the balance up by April 1st, or you have to withdraw from school. If you were a senior, you were not going to graduate. It was just horrific. And I had just come up through John Hope Home and saw all of one of the things that pained me, I don't see it as much now, that you can go through the housing projects on the first of the month and you will see our people put out. And inevitably you'll see ladies primarily sitting out on their stuff so people didn't steal it. And so it always grieved my spirit, and I just come through that. And so the president sent his letter out. So I have a report. When you're a student government president, you sit on the board of trustees, you sit do all these nice, wonderful things, and I've done all these nice, wonderful things. Me and the president was partners, and so I thought. So I go to him to plead for our people not to be put out, not to be essentially kicked out of school. And I go to him, and it did not turn out well. This dude says to me, we're putting them out. And if you don't like it, then too bad. Make sure your balance paid because you get put out too.
That did it.
And I said, sir, I'm saying, excuse me. Well, we're in chapel, so I won't cuss, but I wish I could say what he said. He looked across his old office oversaw the towers at Morris Brown. And you could look, he said, look at all these damn cars out here. Mm-hmm. Look at these students walking in the yard. They can buy these cars and buy clothes. They can pay off their bill. I said, well, Dr. Smith, you all allowed them to come back. I wouldn't have a problem if the policy was, if you didn't pay for this semester, you can't come back. Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't have this issue. I said, but you let them back, and now you're just going to summarily drop him. He said, that's exactly what we're going to do. So I said, please don't do that. He said, no, that's what we're going to do. So I go back. I have a dilemma now. The guy who I had so much respect for has made a decision that will impact a lot of students. Yeah. And I got to decide as a student leader what to do about it. And it didn't take long to figure out. By this time, Gallaudet University, a school of the deaf, had taken over its administration building. Mm-hmm. Howard University was in the middle of a takeover. If you remember, Lee Atwater, the chairman of the Republican Party at that time, was on the board of Howard, and they wanted him out. And you had Raz Baraka, who is now the mayor of Newark. You had Brother Malik Shabazz. All of these are students, April Silver, all students. And they created an organization called Black Near Force. They would raise so much hell up at Howard. And so I had a young freshman, Martin Odom, who came to my office and said, what you gonna do? You know, we gotta do something. What you gonna do? You gonna let them get put out? You're a chump, you're this, you're that. And so I had to go to bed thinking I was a chump and I was this and that. And the next morning we woke up and said, hey, we don't have a choice now. Yeah. We gotta do something drastic to stop this.
How many students are with you?
It is interesting, really, because it is probably the most profound time for me ever in my leadership cycle. I am 21, 22. I've really met the requirements to graduate, so I'm really out of the door. The only people really who were down with the cause were primarily freshmen, because like they just got here. And so I said to Martin, this dude comes in. Now, Martin Odom, father had been a big time preacher in the AME church. He was a contemporary of King's. He was very good friends with the bishop at that particular time. Bishop Red Adams was the bishop, John Hurst Adams, and he had this relationship with the bishop. And so we decided on Africa night, Morris Brown had this big Africa night, we're gonna take over the building. Got to do it. No turning back. I told him, I, John the Baptist, now go out into these highways and byways and find us some disciples who believe just like you and I, that if there is no risk, there's no reward. I talked it over, mentioned it in allegory to Arthur Langford, because I didn't do anything without him, knowing. I said, if I got involved in protests on the campus, would you support me? Never told him what it was. He said, man, I believe in you, and I believe that you will do what's right. Just be careful. And so that led to 19 students. He would go every night to every dorm and have these rallies, just like you did that wonderful introduction. This dude would go and rally students. He had an uncanny ability to rouse students up. And he would rouse the students up, and I would walk in and give the Dr. King speech or Malcolm speech, whatever night it required. And we would tell people we were going to do something dramatic to stop this, because students were really frantic. They didn't have the money. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how they were going to get home.
But they were scared too.
They were scared.
Yeah.
And fear will make you do some things that you ordinarily wouldn't think about. So April 4th, 1989, we decided to go into the administration building. The building, the president was the last person out of the building that night. We had learned, I'm reading by this time, The Art of War, Sun Tzu, studying under Dr. Khalid. It was a military operation. And 19 of us had decided, well, 19 plus myself. That's something about the wonderful number 19. I'll teach on that later. Decided to go into the building. And I'll never forget that night. Mike Weaver, who's a dear friend, was working at Phyllis Wheatley Y. Before we even get to that, the vice president of student government was always, and I got to tell this because this is a leadership story, always down. But that Negro wasn't going to do anything.
He was talking
and every
the gang,
movement,
did nothing.
every movement need a Judas factor for the 19. So we tell them we're going to have a major protest on the yard. We didn't tell anybody. But by the time 11 o'clock come, the police are there, campus security.
Because he snitched.
Because he snitched.
Yeah.
Right? And so at this particular time, we are hidden out in the Phyllis Wheatley Y. Mike Weaver was working there. I told him, brother, you got the key. I need to hide out with these 19, but I need to be at a vantage point where I can see everything that's happening. And so we're there making protest banners and posters, and we see all this commotion. And I said, well, damn, it wouldn't have worked if we had not gone with the plan that was divinely put in place. So they stay on the campus until about 1 o'clock. Everything dies down, security goes. They see no protest. They don't see me anywhere. Everybody's looking for me. And so by this time, we already have 2 students who are in the basement of the building who have stayed over. And we're communicating with them via walkie-talkie. What do you hear? What do you see? And 4 o'clock that morning.
This is a serious operation.
It's a serious operation. Look, I'm skipping a lot of detail because I know we don't have time. At every turn, what I tried to do is not do it. Because the guarantee I had from my mentor was, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Right?
Right.
They're not going to arrest you. They're not going to kill you. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. So in the back of my mind, I'm asking, well, what could be the worst thing happen? They'll put me out. My grades are good enough. I can go to any school I want to. And I had that same care for these freshmen who were just getting there. I don't want anything to happen to them because they're taking the greatest risk. By now, I'm a junior getting ready to graduate. And so I look for opportunities to get out. And then, but God, by this time I'm fasting. I don't know what fasting is, but I know I'm so busy I hadn't eaten in 3 days.
Yeah.
And if you all, how many of y'all from the university, Beulah Heights? Okay. You know about, how many of y'all know about fasting and praying? That God will send you, when you are really deep into this thing, messages that are just uncanny. So the one thing that we needed that we did not have was chain, because we had counted the number of doors, and most of the schools like the doors out there where you pull them in, and if you wrap a chain and put a lock on it, you can't open it.
Right.
So we said we got about 10 doors. We need enough chain for the doors. I told Martin to go find some old keys because we're going to break off keys in every lock and then put super glue behind it so you can't put a key in. Now, I'm probably giving y'all too much information. Y'all don't be trying this nowhere else. So we broke off keys, super glued the doors, chained the doors on the interior, and say that one door when we come in, we're in, and then we can lock the door behind us. And 4 o'clock in the morning on April 4th, the day that Dr. King was assassinated, we went in. And once we got in, it was something else. Yeah. It's a wonderful, beautiful struggle. But it shut down the entire Atlanta University Center. And I know Zahira was there. Anybody was there during that time? Remember it? All right, 1989. But what
was the impact?
The impact of it was, the long-term impact was, we wanted a number of things. One was African Studies department. And so Morris Brown College, after the student movement, was the only school in the Atlanta University Center that offered a degree in African American Studies. Wow. And until it closed, it was the only school. Morehouse didn't, Spelman, nobody offered Africa. And we were like, how can we be a black institution, the blackest place you can get education, and not have a degree where you can study the lives of the souls of black folks? We have, the souls of black folks were written off of Morris Brown campus by W.B. Du Bois in Fountain Hall when it was the original campus of Atlanta University, but we had no place where we could study black studies. And we talked about faculty competency. We had 9 demands that we had the administration agree to before we came out of the building. Many of you know the chairman of the AME Church is the presiding prelate of the AME Church of the 6th District is also the chairman of the board of Morris Brown. That's still the arrangement to this day. They were in general conference where they dispensing and giving away churches down in Augusta somewhere, and we told them we will only negotiate with Bishop Adams, and we don't care what conference he in. He's got to come to Atlanta. And so every AME preacher, some of them Negro preachers still mad at me because they thought they didn't get the church they were supposed to get because the bishop had to come. I missed one detail. So these stopgaps opportunity to call it off. I was talking about the change. So ironically, the day or two before we go in the building, guess what happened? Morris Brown strings all of this chain on the yard to keep people from walking on the new grass that it had just planted. So I'm like, Martin, where's the chain? We need to go to Office Depot, Home Depot or somewhere, get some chain. And Martin said, there it is. Because see, I'm the reluctant leader. Sometimes you got to be, in your leadership, you may have to pull back. I was a reluctant leader. So here go all of this chain, more than what we needed, that didn't cost us anything. I said, Mark, go find some keys. This dude go and get keys. Everything I asked that brother to do, he did. And one of the things I asked him to do, the last call off that was going to just make it go away, I said, arrange a dinner for us with Bishop Adams. Well, Morris Brown owned the house, there's a Morris Brown Drive, Spelman Drive, just about Washington High School. It owned a home that it allows the bishop to stay in. And so we go to dinner at the bishop's house. And I asked, Martin knows the bishop. I don't really know John Adams. I would come to know him. Powerful preacher from South Carolina, light-skinned brother, booming voice, and we go in for dinner. And finally, we eat the dinner, and I'm like, I didn't come to ask him to call it off. Make the president, you're chairman of the board, make the president not put these students out. Mm-hmm. And he would not do it. He said, well, I'll never forget in his groggly voice he has. He said, well, young men, you all have created an adversarial relationship with the president of this university, and you're going to have to figure it out. Now, have a good night.
That was it.
That was it. So I told Martin, look, we don't have a choice, man. Mm-hmm. Let's get it. So we take over the building, stayed in there. The bishop has to come, sign this agreement. The first thing was no retaliation against the students. And we come out, we are the AU Center 20, as dubbed by Khalid Abdul Muhammad. We are fanfared all over across Atlanta. Every news media outlet, every CNN, everybody want to talk to these young students. And I learned something else in leadership then. Whenever in your leadership you experience a mountaintop experience, be prepared for the valley experience that comes with it. Them Negroes, I had a group of 3 or 4 students who literally wanted to kill me. The president had told them I had to just did all of this. He knew I wasn't going to put the students out. Because after all this happened, of course, none of the students got put out, right? And so he had to back off the policy. But he told them, he had already told me he was going to do it. And then this dude just flat out lied. I was not prepared. You know, I could deal with a thief, and but a lying thief. And what happened on the inside was this dude actually, the power of women, that just, once again, he comes in there with his resignation letter already typed up. And we're on a walkie-talkie. His wife is on the outside. And we stay in there about 4 hours. Halfway through, she takes the walkie-talkie from one of our leaders outside and starts screaming to him, "Come out of there. Just come out of there." And at that point, he said to the chairman of the board, I resign. And the students in there went to pieces.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
This was a man you had a lot of respect for.
Tremendous amount of respect.
So not only was he adversarial to your leadership, your advocacy, but he ended up lying on you as a young man.
And for me, that was the abyss that once he crossed that, I was done with him.
Right. How did that make you feel?
I was okay with it because I'm comfortable in the fact, in the back of my mind again, Arthur Langford, mentor, brother who I entrusted with my life, had said to me, nothing is going to happen to you. So we only allowed 3 people in, Arthur Langford, the bishop, and the president, because I wanted him to be a witness to everything that went down there, right? And so after whatever happened, I knew that the guy who really gave me life in this thing was sitting in there as an eyewitness to it. So when the students break and I had to gather them, I said, now look, this is how this is going to work. I'm prepared to see this Negro leave now. If he left campus, he would do us all a favor. But I'm not going to make that call. I'll let you all do it. And one of the points of contention was in the document, we said the student leaders demand A, B, C, and D. And he wanted to say the student administration agree. He just wanted to save face because now it's a real political issue. Right. This is a national story, it's a local story, and his name is blazing all over it as fell leader. And he was already trying to make his exit out of Morris Brown. So while it hurt, the more hurting thing was when he tried to incite the students against you. Not only just against me, but physically to harm me. Wow. And by that time, I am protected by a whole host of people. I mean, you have Khalid. I'm trained by Khalid Abdul Muhammad. I don't talk a lot about Khalid because I don't have to. But I was with that brother for just about every day for about 3 years. And you cannot be around a man of that caliber and not understand every aspect of leadership. The first and foremost, you're going to be a soldier. All right? And so I always had that spirit in me. So. But yeah, that was different. But we get through it, and they try to kick us out, and we go through a legal process. I end up having to sue the school, and that was a whole nother thing with lawyers. The first lawyer we got, we were supposed to go to court. He didn't even know when the court date was, and it was supposed to be the next day. I'm working as an intern at City Hall, and I happened to be walking. Underground had just reopened. I was dejected. I mean, it was probably the lowest time for me because I'm telling these 19 other students, I got y'all. Their parents now calling. We are suspended. I've been expelled. I had a restraining order restraining me from going on Morris Brown. I've been arrested now 5 times off the campus. I got arrested one day.
You still set to graduate at this point?
Dude, I graduated with honors from Morris Brown.
Look at that.
And so, but I got arrested twice in one day. I had a restraining order to keep me off campus, and I go into the dorm. They done kicked my stuff out of the dorm. I don't even know where they put my little refrigerator, microwave. They kicked me out of the dorm. They bar me. They have my picture. Be on the lookout on every campus. They served me with a restraining order, restraining me from the campus. They basically held me for about 2 hours in the dorms over there one day. And then the Atlanta police came pick me up. They arrest me. And the minute I get out, I go back to the campus. I'm arrested again, and then we announce this protest at the president's house. Morris Brown had another house that the president owned right next to the Herndon home where he lived. And I told him, Negro, if I can't sleep, you won't sleep. And so we had students picketing his house and community folks. So yeah, it was quite some time.
Who are your heroes?
Heroes. Wow. There's a number of them. I mean, my mother taught me to nurture, the nurturing side. My mother would feed people, and our home was where people came, even now. I love her so much because I saw the sacrifice she made. And she did it so effortlessly. And even to this day, you know, my mom has been my biggest cheerleader, biggest hero, supporter. Even when I ran for city council, it takes a lot of money to run for office. I didn't know that then. But by the time I run for city council, I'm like, I got to get over this last week. I'm about $3,000, got to get a mailing out and some other stuff. And my mom worked at the GM plant in Lakewood. When it closed, she said, I'm not going to Doraville. I told her my dad had died. And so she was at home living off her retirement, decided to go back to school, take up nursing. But I go to her, Mom, whenever I get just out of depressed, I just go to her. Not even looking for anything other than just the nurture of a mother, right? And I said, well, I'm about $3,000 short. I'm going to get out here and beg this money up. She said, you need what? So she goes to her room and come back with this big old stack of money.
From the bed, underneath the bed somewhere.
Man, wherever she got it from,
Yeah.
She said, look here. She looked me straight in the eye. She said, look, I know you're going to win.
Wow.
She said, here's the $3,000 you need. She said, pay me back whenever you make it back. But go out there and kick their behind.
How important, now that you look back and you see she was supportive, she was there, how important was that in your development as a leader?
It's supremely the ultimate that you can get. Because here's the thing, let me just keep it 100 with you. You can develop a whole lot of friends. You can develop a whole lot of associates. But what I found in 53 years, when all the chips are down, my family, we get stronger the older we get, right? And so family is really all you got. If you got a good family, even now, I laugh because I'm the youngest of six. We're only a year apart, and my two sisters are only 11 months apart. Y'all heard that? They're 11 months apart, so for a month they're the same age. But Vicky and Yolanda, anything I need, and I don't even have to ask, they're there. My brother Darryl, just a smart guy, a nuclear physicist by training, a colonel in the Army. That dude has supported me financially, supported everything I've done. The early years of Let Us Make Man, you hear about this great organization, all they do, thousands of dollars that they give away. For the first 3 years, that brother wrote checks out of his pocket because he saw my dream and wanted the dream to grow. And so really, family is everything to me. And so, you know, they're my greatest strength and inspiration. And so we're just tight like that. It's just like y'all. Now we fight, but don't come for the Boazmans now.
Right.
Because if you do, you're gonna need a lunch and snack with you, some extra water.
Got to pack it all day.
That's just the way we roll. Whether it was the cousins or everybody, y'all heard me talk about my cousin Gray the other day. That Negro fight everybody. I'm like, man, this is the one cousin I had to cut a loose because this dude I would be in jail. I knew I'd be in jail hanging with him, but. Yeah, family, but Arthur Langford, I talk about him a lot because that dude, man, just by his example, he did not know I was watching him, but I walked into the governor's office with this guy, his daughter, who is married to the mayor of the city. I would go pick her up from school. You know, she was 11, 12 years old. I was allowed to serve. I saw this guy who was a politician, preacher, speak to hookers. He loved to walk Auburn Avenue. Every numbers man, Peanut, and everybody else knew him. Every street walker knew him. He walked into the governor's office. He traveled the world over with Zell Miller at that time to Moscow, and I met James Carville and Carville was Miller's campaign manager long before he knew the Clintons. And so I got to go all over the country with him. He had a play, The Life of a King. I don't know if anybody saw it. It went all over Atlanta and all over small town Georgia. So I traveled with him. Of course, Mike Langford, his brother, becomes the best friend I have in this world today. And so those are real heroes. But sisters like Sister Heidi and Sister Lucille from the nation who supported me, made sure I was eating, made sure I went to school. We have a lot of people to thank. We've not gotten anywhere on our own.
You got a lot of successes. If you had to name your number one success, what would that be?
Oh, wow, number one success. I never even thought about it. I've just lived such an extraordinarily blessed life. It's hard to name one thing. You could say being elected to the council, but when I got there, after about 4 or 5 years of that, I was tired of it. Radio has been the longest thing I've done. And I do radio not because I particularly like it, all right? I just started being a radio personality maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I don't do the Rashad. Rashad prepares, studies, and go over notes. And I will tell this brother, and he will tell you when he came, I said to him, brother, you can go from this medium anywhere you want to go. You are naturally gifted to do this. I was not. And so I just sit and just talk to y'all every day. I mean, it's just like having a conversation. I ain't looked at nothing else. Most of the time I get up there and so glad I'm chair. So glad I'm chair. And really the medium works because people, after you done had a long day, I can come in there with some weighty, stuff, but why bother? Hell, I don't want to think that hard, and I don't want you to have to think that hard. We'll slip it in, but what I learned about that medium is you can help a lot of people.
You can, yeah.
I mean, you can help a lot of people. The stuff that gives me chills when I look back over the radio years, which in April of next year will be 14 years. When you think of the number of people we have buried, when you think of the number of people we put in housing, and this brother just does it so reflectively. When you think of the dollar amount and scholarships and stuff we've been able to give, if I went on radio, none of that stuff would be successful. Right. The proudest thing I'm doing now is taking people back to Africa. You don't even know what that means. We were in Senegal, and you have to go. If you can ever go on any of these trips, go. Because the trip is really not just the trip. When we're in Senegal, I'm looking at how many people we take, about 80 people, I think, somewhere there about. A sister buried, we just went through this powerfully, spiritually uplifting ceremony where this sister said, I want to bury my mother and my sister remains here. And so I'm deeply spiritual. And so, when she said it, before we got there, it didn't mean anything. And we get there to Gorée Island, door of no return. We get off and we tell people to join us at the seashore of the Atlantic Ocean. And I had to put the video back up there. It was like an epiphany for me. I've been to Senegal before, so I knew what to expect. But when this sister spread her mother and her sister ashes on the Atlantic Ocean, and we were leaving, and one of our African brothers just started to spontaneously speak. And I purposely tagged behind the folk because I had seen it all. And I'm there walking with Reverend Derrick Rice, who says to me, brother, there are only a few of you all who have brought people to Africa in this number.
Wow.
Right? And you talk about Baba Nana Balfour, Asa Hilliard. You know, you think of Dr. Sullivan. These are men of such report that I'm not even worthy to tie their shoes. But when you look in front of you and you see all of these people whose first time experience in Africa, I knew then I have to keep going back every year.
Yeah.
And so that has been kind of one of the great things for me. Because if we can just connect within us, back to what make us great, then we won't be so quick to kill each other. We won't be so quick to cut each other down. We will know that we are from a royal priesthood, and that really is your brother and sister, and you want for your brother and sister that what you want for yourself.
Yeah,
So,
knowledge of self.
yeah.
Biggest failure.
Oof. You know what? I just like the biggest success, I don't have a single one. I've sacrificed a lot. I don't even talk about it. You know, I don't talk about it. When you look at it, I'm 53, so I got a lot more to go. I got a lot more failure to do. Everything I felt that was a lesson in it, though.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so whether it was a business or I have not, you know, I don't even know what to call failure. Because in my world, failure really does not exist.
Right.
Because I set the bar very high, and if I don't get it on the first try, I'm going to try it again. And so, yeah.
You don't have finality, and so failure is final.
Yeah.
And if you live your life where you don't allow circumstances to create finality for you, you never really have failure. You just have lessons, right? Let Us Make Man.
Mm-hmm.
Can we give a round of applause for Let Us Make Man? Really interesting. I met my lady, my woman, and her and I were talking. One of the first conversations we had, and she said, I don't think she had never heard of me. She had heard of you, though. Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah, I'm going down to Albany State University, right, for Let Us Make Man. And here I am trying to impress this young lady. And I said, well, yeah, you know, DB's my homeboy. Baby, I'll go down there with you. But the organization and the impact that it has had goes well beyond WAOK. Explain that transition.
My father used to always say, don't go out in these streets and mess up our good name, right? And Let Us Make Man was an evolution. I'm always thinking of better for us, right? And so 13 years ago, again, I called a group of brothers just to my home and said, man, they were killing young people, killing each other, going to jail. What can we do? And I called a gathering, a cross-section. If you look at us on paper, there's no good reason that we should hang out together. I have Muslims from the nation, Muslim from the world community. I have Baptist preacher. I have business owners. I have lawyers. I have teachers. And we just began to talk. All of them were doing things in their own way. This was supposed to be a one-time shot. My training is, and my background is in training. So I'm a certified trainer in many areas, primarily community organizing and leadership. Trained at Midwest Academy out in Chicago. In fact, I missed the Million Man March because I was at a Jesuit priest compound during the Million Man March in Chicago, right? During the time of the Million Man March. And the requirement was, it was a week, like 8 days long. If you start, you could not leave it. And so I went and got that training. And so we put together this training model. And 13 years later, one of the things that we learned was, as we brought in new people, It's impossible to get in. Brothers always ask, can I get in Let Us Make Man? And Eldridge, Washington Eldridge is back there. Y'all won't know how to get in Let Us Make Man. Ask Eldridge, he'll tell you. I'm a Mason, I'm a Alpha, I done played many different things, but there's nothing special like this. And the thing that we found out, the reason it has lasted so long, if I would tell y'all a backroom story, is because here's the thing. Men who operate at a high level, and I would say to Rashad and to all of you who get out here and serve, one of the things we found out, because we meet in my home every Thursday night, about 3-4 months before the conference started, there's no outlet where you can go and be authentically who you are. If you're a high-performing attorney like Attorney Mahuli Davis, where do he go sit where he can take all of that attorney title and all that stuff off? Where do Reverend Rice and Eldridge Washington, who do you talk? Now, let me give you another leadership nugget. Don't discuss all your business. Here's a leadership nugget that we just got a couple of years ago. Don't discuss your business with people who have no capacity to help you. I mean, otherwise we call it gossiping. But if you're trying to struggle with a thing, don't give your business to people who do not have the capacity to help you solve it, right? And so when we get together, it's something, I can't even explain it, that happens. The brothers we have cried, we've been through divorces, we've been through remarriages in that group, we've been through family member losses, some great tragedies, but it is all made easier because we know we got a brotherhood where we can come and just be real, and that it is not going to leave that room. And we brought the best practices from all of our organizations. Before we leave any meeting, elders, what do? Good for the brotherhood. You cannot walk out of our meeting without a good for the brotherhood. And what is that? Anything that you are going through, anything that you are experiencing that these brothers may need to know about, let us know. And that could be just you want to invite them to your speaking engagement, or you want to tell them, look, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And the prognosis is not good. And this is what we're doing, so pray for us. Or, my mother had to be rushed to the hospital last night. And so if my spirit is not quite where it should be, my mind is on, or as one member my mother has been diagnosed with the beginning stage of dementia. And so even when I call her now, she don't recognize who I am. Wow. And because of my love for that brother, I can pull him to the side and say, brother, so long as the cords of memory lengthen, she may not know who you are at this point, but you know exactly who she is. And she's the same mother today, yesterday, and forever. So whatever may come out of her mouth, know that is the disease talking, but not her. Right. And so we can be that for each other. And about 20, 22, 23 men, grown men now, when you have that, you have something uniquely special. Unlike in the fraternity, because I got some frat brothers I wouldn't trust out of the sanctuary. I got some Negroes in lodge I wouldn't even speak to. But when you've been through a series of testings with people, you need that.
That's real connectivity. We talked about connectivity in my college class today, right before coming in here. And part of the lesson was there's no such thing as authentic connectivity without relationship.
Nothing happens outside of relationship.
Not capable, right? Not capable.
Nothing happens outside of relationship. That's why I put such a premium on it. Most people will tell you, if I love and respect you, I love and respect you. Yeah. Through difficulties, through misunderstandings. I'm oftentimes going back and just letting people know. One thing, I just don't want to be misunderstood, right? And that happens a lot in the profession we're in. People call up and they assume they know us, right? I said, I wish you really could meet Rashad Richey, not the realest man in radio. Yeah. Because Rashad Richey is 10 times better than the realest man in radio. This is a dude who, after the phone call ends, who are looking for places for homeless people to stay. Said, I wish y'all could meet the real Wanda Smith. You know, you may know the Cat William one, but you don't see the sister who goes out to battered women's shelters and never put it on social media. Or Greg Street, who take tens of thousands of dollars of his own money, not money from the radio station, of his own money, and give away. You know, and so radio is what we do. It is not necessarily who I am or who we are.
Very well said. Well said. We're pressed for time. I want to make sure we get a few Q&As in. Before we do that, my friend Jeff in the back, I think about 8 years ago, may have been a little longer, there was a horrific case that you were involved in. We're going to play some of that. We'll play some of that, and I want to get your emotion about it because you did mention.
These folks got video evidence.
Yeah,
and all right.
We do. It's coming up. We may want to get those lights.
The community is gathered around her here at Clayton County. This is reference to the national crowd that is going on. Nate Perkins from NatePerkins.tv. You can see more of this on NatePerkinsLive.com. See Derrick Boazman walking behind her. He is on his way out of the church at this time.
We've all got witches over now, so we'll do our best.
Derrick Boazman leaving the building.
What's up? What's up? What's up, man? What's happening? I got that thing too. I had to come out here. I got it. One day when you're still living like that, I need you to come here and I know that's why I say no, but sure you are. Have you ever tried to call in?
Media doing its part for community relations here.
Yeah, awesome.
Great, nice.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Tremendous turnout. But it's a sad occasion to bring people together like this. Your thoughts on the way it went? Almost 2 hours.
Well, I think what it says is that people are, we're still perplexed. We still it's a mind-blowing situation. But I think more than anything, we come to the church for prayer, not just for Tasha Hill, specifically for her, but for this community. We are looking forward to a day when we won't have to go to trials like this that take us so far back removed from the great progress we made. So in a way, it's tragic, but it also says that we have to see these cases through to the end. So however long it might take, we're going to stand with this family because they're going to need us. There's no question about it.
Some great points made this evening, not the least of which is where's the outrage among the white people in this area, among the churches in this area? Would you like to see a broader base of representation?
Well, I think that most importantly, this church will fulfill with churches representative. I'm never moved by the leadership. We're thankful to Reverend A.J. McMichael, who opened the church house doors to this community. The bottom line is I can't worry about who didn't show up. I'm going to be here, and the folks who are in this audience have made it very clear that they're going to be here to walk all the way with Tasha Hill and with our beautiful daughter.
Tasha's attorney at the end said, look, continuations like this happen. It's what an attorney has to say. Are you buying it?
Let me tell you this, attorneys do what attorneys do, but justice delayed is justice denied. It's taking far too long. What we're saying to the district attorney, as well as to the opposing counsel, he told us that he has a plausible defense for Mr. West. We're saying come to court and tell the people. Put the tape on. We've been waiting for nearly a year to see this tape. I want to see what happened because the tape tells the story, but the bottom line is, however long it takes, we're going to wait and we're going to stand with this young girl who, I mean, the real tragedy of this is her 8-year-old daughter was standing right there with her. So our prayers go with them. But more importantly, we're saying, let's get it on. Let's not delay it any further.
Okay, somebody else may look at this tape. I need you to say your name for us.
Derrick, D-R-I-C-K, Boazman, B-O-A-Z-M-A-N.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, sir. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Wow. I don't even think I've seen that. I don't know where y'all got. Send me a copy of that.
We'll get a copy to you.
Mm-hmm.
In my research, I wanted to bring that to the forefront. There's plenty of videos, but it is so similar to what's happening now. And you said something so powerful. Justice delayed is justice denied. Give us the sense of what you were feeling back then. And did you think, I think this was maybe 8 years ago, 9 years ago?
Maybe a little bit more, yeah.
Yeah. Did you get the sense that you would be fighting those same battles this far into the future?
Yep.
Yeah.
Coretta Scott King says that our freedoms are won by every generation.
Wow.
The unfortunate reality for black people, hell, we don't get a chance to stop fighting. I am just glad that God has equipped me with a warrior spirit. In leadership, you're sent to do, and a lot of times what I do is watch and pray, Lord, let somebody else do this, right? Because if I get involved with it, I can't show up and then disappear.
Yeah.
This young girl was this soldier. She was in soldier uniform, was beaten in a Cracker Barrel by this white racist. We found out he was indeed a racist. Beat her in front of her 8-year-old daughter, called her the N-word and everything else. And as they do, they proceeded to put her on trial. Here's the thing I will say to you. Whenever you see me out front, sometimes I'll make a strong statement and then retreat. But if you see me consistently out front, I have squared it with my God. I prayed about it and said, Lord, grant me the ability to win here.
Right.
And whatever a victory looks like, I'll accept it. But I'm not going to stop until something happens for the people who have been aggrieved. So long story short, this guy ends up arrested. He was jailed, for beating her. They put her on trial. The local attorney that handled the case was a dear friend. I won't call his name here. Family very much rooted in Atlanta. And I pulled him to the side. I said, you know, man, all money ain't good money. I said, now, I know you all want to allege that this sister did something wrong, but brother, what if this was your sister?
Right. Right.
The one thing we do know that this man who was about 6'5", this was a big white boy, beat this woman. The only thing that goes through my mind is a scene out of Roots or something. And so it became to be just mentally too much. But we kind of went at it, and I let him know, brother, I got on radio, talked about him, and he came to me afterwards and said maybe I shouldn't took the case. And about a year or two after that, he was disbarred from practicing law.
Wow. 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 All money.
You can take it
Good money.
or leave it alone, but he was stripped of his license to practice law, not to do with this case, but the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bent towards justice.
Right.
So
That's right. We want to do some Q&A. Got time for a couple of questions. DB like to get home.
no, look here,
good?
I'm y'all. I done had my veggie burger and everything, but so I'm here for as long as you need me.
Nicole will bring a microphone. Can you do that for me, Nicole? Thank you, sister.
Anybody over here? Right here?
We'll come over. We'll come over. I see you, sister. And let me say this first. Please, let's have a question. That's all. Because it's getting late. I got to be up early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Greetings. DB, I'm working with Valencia Stovall, State Representative Valencia Stovall, to have a Black history from an African origin of civilization paradigm, along with other diversity, dropped in the hopper this upcoming General Assembly. Will you work with us as we move along with that process forward? Because it's going to take a lot, because I was raised in Georgia, and I know that this is one of those situations.
Yeah. No. Here's the thing, and I say that because we've had this conversation before. If a man won't treat you right, he damn sure ain't going to teach you right. And so to expect the legislature of this state, the superintendent of this state, even the local board, if we cannot get the Atlanta Board of Education to put in a standard teaching of African history, then, I don't want you to race up the hill and get mad at me. African history got to be taught everywhere we go. It got to be taught here. I purposely wear this because it is a walking history lesson. So to expect the slave master to teach you how to be free, it would be good on paper, but they will still give you that Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492, and they know that Italian never made it to America. And so the lies are so deep in education, they're so deeply rooted. The books that's coming out of Texas now tells our children that we were brought here to help the Anglo with their crops.
Yeah.
Now that's a far cry from what we were brought here to do. So while I don't have any opposition, I will do and come and maybe speak in one. I am not expecting these folks to teach us. Freedom is a road several traveled by the multitude. And so those of us who are traveling on Freedom Highway, we got to be the modern day Harriet Tubman and take as many of people as we can. That is why if you listen to Too Much Truth, you would be lying if you say you're not getting some of your history every day. You listen to Rashad Richey, you're getting your history every day, because they are not going to give you your history. And I wouldn't want my history told to me by the people who have colonized us, have financially raped us, have stole our religion, our culture, our God. I'm not expecting them to free me. I'm just not.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Boazman. Sharon Thrasher,
Yes, Sharon, good to see you.
a devoted listener to both your shows for many, many years. I just have a quick statement to make. I'm impressed by 4 different things that you've been involved in. The baby AJ situation with Emory.
Oh my God.
And he made a difference.
Yes. The situation with the little boy that was carjacked and sang Every Praise.
Yeah.
The situation with Arthur Blank and the elderly people in that tower.
Yeah.
And your annual Christmas community party.
That
Thank
dinner.
you.
I thank you.
Thank
for
you,
all that
sis.
you do, and love you. Love you
Thank
both
you.
very much.
I will say this. The older you get, you need to have some of these experiences. The baby AJ case changed me yet again. Because when you're dealing with an institution like Emory,
Right. Who told you what they weren't going to do?
told us,
Yeah.
I've been at this thing long enough to know when there ain't gonna be a breakthrough, right? Been at it long enough to know these, for whatever reason, these people are not moving. And but the only thing I could do in that case, because I have exhausted the wisdom that I have, I can only fight them now. But this particular time, they really were gonna let that baby die. I'm very clear about that. because we were really on a timetable. And I was exhausted, mentally, physically. We went out there for several days. I just wanted to be alone to try to figure it out. And we finally, on the day that I said, this is the day, Lord, if it's going to happen, it's got to happen today. And so I go down there, fully ready, and tried everything I could to get arrested. Because one thing I understand about arrest, if the majority of you all left here tonight and got arrested for anything, you call your family member and that's it. If Rashad Richey and I leave here tonight and get arrested, it's going to be on the news. All right? All right? It's just a fact. If the state representative get arrested tonight, it's going to be on the news. And so I wanted to make sure the baby AJ situation got on the news. And there were about 5 of us. We done went in, look, we went in the hospital with the bullhorn now, where the patients are. Yeah. I mean, I got the bull, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Now, I'm a warrior, so I don't even believe in them old songs. But and then you got just, we did everything. And so this white guy, the security wouldn't arrest us. They wouldn't arrest us. So the vice president of communication sees me. And so we done did this for about an hour. We done prayed and everything. And so I said, Langford, we got to go, man. I said, whatever I got to do. And so after singing and everything, I asked one, Sue, where the hell is the president's office now? I'm through with this. And so the white guy says, look, he said, what do you want? What do y'all want? I said, I want to meet with the president. Because one of the things Grandma Mazora said, look here, boy, when you meet with white folk, don't just meet with anybody. You meet with the decider, the people. You go to the tallest building downtown, you meet with them folks. So I always know where's the people who can make this happen. So the guy tells me, look, give me 30 minutes. I said, you got 29 because you done wasted 1. And he said, I'll call you back. 29 minutes later, he did not call me back. I didn't know where the president's office was. I had a general idea, and I told those of us who were going to be marching towards this building. And as we're marching, what we did not know was there were about 40 DeKalb County police officers in the parking garage waiting to see what we were going to do. So they following us, and I started headed towards the president's office, and my cell phone rings. Said, the president will see you. And he in the building down the street on the 2nd floor. And I said, okay, well, now, I said, there go God working.
Right.
Because up to that, we ain't been able to see nobody. I said, it's turning now. I said, because if I can just get in the room with the decision maker, something is going to happen. So we invite some students. Long story short, because I know the time is short. I asked this dude one question. I said, now, if this was your son, would you let him die? And I asked, is Emory University prepared to let this baby die? And once because if he said, yeah, I will go into jail because I'm going to reach across the table
Right.
and just start strangling him.
Right.
Right. I mean, really, I was going to get an assault charge because I figure if I assault the president, I'm going to go on big trial, and he going to have to say why he was assaulted. I mean, in my mind, I got this thing figured out. And this dude said no. And that's the first time I got air back in me.
Yeah.
Then I press him. I tell him, tell me what you know of this. Find out he didn't know anything. See, the way transplants happen, because they were going to take the kidney out of the dad. Daddy got arrested. I ain't going back over the story. Yeah. And then he said something that was I said, I knew we got it there. Then he said, there's a panel of doctors make this decision. What happened was, within that panel, the dad was supposed to come. They had already prepped him and tested him. Yeah. He supposed to have been at 1. They couldn't get him there because he was what? In jail.
He was in jail, yeah.
The mother is so beautiful. She started creating these lies. He's at work. He's at this. So when they finally able to get him there, they told him it's too late. I mean, hold on. We're not going to give your child this kidney because the dad is late.
Yeah.
And that was just too much for me to fathom. And so the breakthrough comes when the president says, everybody, we got a room about 20 people, 15, 20 people sitting there, including students. The only thing I would listen for that one word. He said, we have baby AJ on the kidney transplant list.
Yeah.
And then I said, well, I asked him on the kidney transplant registry. I said, what does that mean? He said, Emory is one of only a couple of hospitals in the country where we have almost like first right of refusal. I said, so that means a kidney could really come available tonight. You wouldn't even have to use his father. He said, that is a very distinct possibility. I didn't ask that man no more questions.
That was it.
Everybody else was still cussing the man out. I told him, look here. I
done.
said, fool, dude, shut up.
Right.
Shut up.
I remember that, and we
No.
covered it. We covered it on my show. News media covered it, and I remember the fight. DB was on the news every night. Remember that?
No.
And I remember when it came down that, and the reporting was basically, you may not even need the father now.
Yep.
Because of how it worked out.
Right.
I remember reporting 10 a.m. in my monologue. I said, DB done saved AJ.
No. I mean, here's the thing that you know.
Yeah.
Only God could have done that.
Yeah.
So I was called to speak. Because DB had exhausted everything he know. Anytime you get to the point that you want to just hit somebody,
Right.
you have exhausted everything you know how to do.
When you
right?
said exhausted your wisdom, I thought that was really powerful because I've been in those moments
Yeah.
where I couldn't articulate it like you just did, but I'm out of ideas, right? But you still fought.
We done protested. We done had prayer vigils. We done did everything traditionally you do. I was working the back channels. For some reason, I was out of town through some part of this. Some of the preachers had called to meet with the president. He refused to meet with Raphael Warnock, who was a student from down there, refused to meet with NAACP. This man had refused, had stonewalled everybody. And so I said, now he won't meet with some of the biggest preachers in town. He will not return the lawyer's call. How in the world am I going to get this man to see me? And so you can only say this is God moving.
Right.
But in my lifetime, God has done that so many times that I knew it was his hand guiding this and not mine. And so 2 weeks later after that, after the baby had the transplant, I am asked to come and speak at Emory. And this don't happen to me often. I just broke down and could not say anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It took me about 15 minutes to really release all of that you're still carrying. So Jim, in leadership number 2, you have to decompress from these big battles like this because I was still carrying that with me.
Yeah.
And it can develop into depression. It can develop into a bunch of stuff. But I could not handle the weight because what I was dealing with, Rashad, was what you said, that for whatever reason, God had chosen a voice that happened to come through me to speak to powers that had no good reason to not let this baby die.
Right.
And so I know that baby now lives in large part because of what happened around that table that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got time for let's do 2 more questions. And we'll stick around. Go ahead.
Sure. Respect, DB. I had a question.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I have a question about your father. I got a whole bunch of questions for you, Rashad, but that's a whole nother
Oh,
conversation.
come on now.
He don't know next month I'm gonna be the host and he gonna be sitting there. So let the folks at Beulah know next month it's gonna be Rashad Richey and I'm interviewing. Cause that's some stuff I do want to know too, right?
Yes. I also want to quickly say I appreciate having the opportunity to go to Senegal with you and support you in many things over the years.
Absolutely.
And, I've enjoyed learning from you, and so I can keep going on with that. But here's my question. I'm always fascinated when you talk about your father.
Yeah.
And you said he passed in 20...
No,
I'm sorry.
no.
He passed before you got in college, right?
That's correct. The
So-
summer that, and actually January 15, 2000, I'm sorry, January 15, 1985.
85, okay. My question is, when you were engaged in your activities with taking over the administration building and whatnot, do you think if your father was alive that you would have, that his influence probably would have given you pause in going forward, or you think he would have been right there like, go ahead with it?
My father was the kind of tough love guy, but I knew he loved me. He didn't say that, but I knew it. I'm the youngest of 6, and so I learned boundaries. You cannot do this without punishment. One of my greatest, my father died when he was 44 years old. And by that time, at 44, in my waking mind, I did not understand it. I was the last one to see him at the hospital. My father was at South Fulton Hospital when my grandmother died. My grandmother died in August of '84, right? Summer as I'm preparing to go to school. She dies, and I never had anybody die that close to me. When Uncle Willie down in the country died, you just go and they had the best fried chicken, macaroni and cheese. You don't know who landed in that box, and really you don't care. That Cousin Willie, we don't really know Cousin Willie. But when your grandmother died, who you saw every day, I remember I was working, because I worked all of my life at a restaurant on Peachtree Street. And I remember walking in the middle of Peachtree Street trying to figure out when the bus coming. And so I wasn't prepared for that. But my father and my grandmother were so close that wherever he was on the planet, if we were on vacation, he got back every Sunday. If she didn't go with us, he would sit down and have coffee with her every Sunday morning at her house, at her apartment and Carver Homes. But he never put restrictions on me. He knew I was rambunctious. He knew I was a talker. My greatest regret is that he never got to see the success I had, because in large part it is because of him, and he would never have known that. My dad, you going to college, that was not even an option. Now kids can tell you they ain't even going to clean up their room and a bunch of other stuff that they don't do. When he forced us out of the house at 18, I was a homeowner at 24. I bought my first house when I was 24, and I've been independent ever since. And so I wanted him to see my success, and that I had gone out here in these streets and had added something to his name. And so I know that he would be proud of me. I think about him every day. I know that he would be proud of me.
Amen. Amen. One more, and sister, I'll come to you because you're so special to both of us, all right? Okay. All right, go ahead,
DB
brother.
Rashad, this is really for both of y'all. I listen to y'all every day. I learn every day from you guys. When are y'all going to do that hosting with all 4 of y'all again?
Man, we got to do that.
We got
I
to
love
do the
that,
brotherhood.
Y'all go back and forth.
Yeah.
I think it's actually my turn.
Yeah, you
Right.
name it. Rashad has to host it, and
Right,
so
so-
whenever he calls it.
Yeah, so I definitely call it. Thank you for bringing that up. And DB and I had a conversation about it when we first started doing it, and we didn't want it to become regular.
Yeah.
So we decided not to say once a month or once a week. We said, when the Spirit leads, we're going to do it.
Right.
Right? And brother, thank you for that. And we'll definitely do another
And the
one.
other thing we're going to do it live, because we can come to event.
Yeah.
We can't come back to the church, because y'all know cussing make my what?
Well, we're going to have to cuss a
Teeth
little
white.
bit.
We'll go to Auburn Avenue Research Library.
Right.
Because I do want to do it live.
Yeah.
And then I won't charge y'all $10 to get in, so we can donate the first one to Rashad's favorite charity. Donate it. Let's do so. I want us to be able to sit up some chairs, stools, unfiltered, uncut, and you can actually, we'll stay there as long as y'all want us to be there.
Do that.
You can take it on the road.
There you go.
We can do that. Yes.
My beloved brother,
Yes.
my question to you is, when are you going to write this book? Let me say this. There's no coincidence in life. You were prepared for this. That's what made you special. You were prepared for this. And you received that, and that's how you were successful, your will and desire. So when are you going to write this book? After, especially
Here,
after tonight?
the wonderful thing is about this radio station, it brings you close to people.
Yeah.
I have a wonderful sister y'all hear called FBK, Frankie Butler Kid. Those people flew me out to Cincinnati last year. I spoke at everything from the chicken cookout to the mega church. But she is a book writer. I would not die with this book in me. And so, because there's so many experiences. One of the things last gem that I would say to you, one of the things I did early on, because I've always been intrigued by leadership, right? And so I want to thank Rashad and this great institution for having such a conversation like this. Because even as a young man at 22, 23, you can see by that time I'm arrested about 5 times. I'd never been arrested for anything. And so I began to look at Atlanta is blessed. Now I know a lot of us just take for granted a prophet is without honor in their own land. So I know y'all think a lot of these folk Toms and everything else. But we have in this city at one time, you can just pull up on Hosea Williams.
Right.
And the thing about these guys was the dude loved to talk.
Yeah.
And when in his Kirkwood office, if you saw the blue and white Cadillac convertible sitting out front, all you had to do is pull up in there. And I would do that often. And this dude would give me so many gems. Yeah. I'm talking about the inside baseball stuff that I had to go back and verify. Some of it I'll take to my grave, right? Mm-hmm. Because it were really the true stories. I know the truth, well, I won't, but anyway. To sit with Arthur Langford. Arthur Langford was associate pastor at West Hunter Street. So I go and wait on him, and who's sitting there? Ralph Abernathy, the guy who Dr. King says he's the best friend I have in the world. As a 20-some-year-old, I'm sitting there next to the guy who has been on every road trip, everywhere King went, he went. Then later I will meet, well, of course, Andy, worked with him, Maynard. At 52, when you look back and see all of the people I grew up watching, what's man? I can't even think of his name now. C.T. Vivian. Mm-hmm. I grew up idolizing this dude. Because when he took that gun butt in the mouth and got up and registered people still to vote, I said, I'm glad I'm not him because I'll be dead already, but I'm glad some. Mm-hmm. So you get to not only meet this dude, you can go in his home and talk to him. His home is like a treasure trove. Yeah. Become dear friends with Bernice King. And we talk often and have dinner and can sit down and the conversations that we've had. And I don't talk a lot about our friendship, but we've been friends for a number of years. And sometimes we just check in with each other. But to be able to have all of that and then have all of you all, it's extraordinary. So for a long time, I didn't think I had anything that people wanted to hear. Then I started thinking about the collection of experiences, because we're a sum total of experiences. But I will tell y'all before I do any of that, one of my great things that I always wanted to do was write children's books. I don't know, so who knows? Y'all may get that before anything else.
Ladies and gentlemen, Derrick Boazman.
Thank you.